Yeah, Simon, my man.
Hello, Almo.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good and you?
No, look, very good for having you on finally. I mean, you were like basically one of my top five to have on the podcast, and I think this is like episode
Hey,
20, 25.
what an
But
honor.
yeah, no, what an honor to be with. It's like the first time you've been doing podcasting for ages, but like this is my attempt at trying to fool around in this area. So you're also like a veteran in that. Um, so I'm going to do a little bit of an intro from my perspective because we've known each other for over 20 years. I think it was 1993 that
I think it's
I
closer to
arrived.
30, Almo.
Yeah, I don't. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I can't count well. You wrote a book in Math We Trust, but my math is cuck. So yeah, it's about 30. So 1993, I arrive in Pretoria from Namibia, and I get put back into standard 6, known as grade 8 to some. I'm supposed to go to grade 9, standard 7, and they decide to put me back a year, and there I meet two friends who were friends they were friends, and I become a third wheel in Simon and Andre's clique and or crew. And it wasn't a clique. We're very inclusive. We've always been very inclusive. We're not a cliquey type of people. And I guess that's how life is, like I got put back into standard 7 either throughout the term or after the first term, because I was determined that I'm not going to spend another year in school. And but I'd met you and I'd met Andre, but this is about you. And yeah, that's how we know each other. And then and since then we even work together now. So we've come a long way. And yeah,
Mm.
so but other than that, intro yourself. I mean, you have a long CV of things. Like me, we're multifaceted individuals, I guess, and we do many things. But what's your sort of journey? What's your story now?
Yeah, well, as you know, I spent a lot of time in media, in radio specifically,
Yeah,
on 702 and Cape Talk and 5 FM, Tuks FM before that, where I think you and I also worked together for a short period of time.
for a short period, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that sort of evolved into writing, and opinion, and speaking at conferences, etc.
Mm,
As you said, I wrote 2 books in Math We Trust and Beyond
mm,
Bitcoin, which I
mm.
co-authored with Stephen Sidley, who's a good friend of ours. And yeah, and then made the migration about, what would it be, about 13 years ago now, into financial technology and product management, and then entrepreneurship and starting businesses. I'm so involved in the beginnings of Luno, Curve in the UK, curve.com, not to be confused with the liquidity automatic market maker on Ethereum. But yeah, and then starting my own businesses with Inves and ZARP
Mm.
and Venox.
Which we'll get into a little bit as well.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, tell us a bit about sort of how did you get into sort of the fintech, financial technology? Get a little bit more specifically there. How did you do that transition? I mean, you wrote an
I was
article.
coerced, Almo.
Is it
Yeah, I
by
didn't do
who?
it on purpose.
Yeah,
By our
but
friend
you
Christo
took,
Darfel.
yeah, but in 11 June
Mm.
9th, I looked at the article. You wrote one of the first Bitcoin articles in FinWeek.
Yeah, so around 2010, a friend of mine, Justin Spratt, asked me to attend a lecture. Well, it was more of a debate between 2 economists, one of which was a gold bug, and another one of which was a sane person. I'm just joking. But Justin introduced me to the concept of Bitcoin. Back then, I hadn't heard of it, and I went home and I read the white paper. Didn't understand it, um, but sort of started noodling around in that space. And in 2011, as you mentioned, Colleen Nordia, who was then the editor of FinWeek magazine, asked me to write a cover story about Bitcoin, and that kind of forced me into a deep dive around the subject. And also got a lot of attention because there weren't that many people talking about Bitcoin in 2011, and you could feed the entire industry with a single pizza pretty much. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that that cover story made its way around the world in the form of a PDF and got a lot of attention, and got a lot of people talking about this new kind of monetary paradigm for the first time. And that really began my voyage into crypto and value protocols. And then I met Christo Darful, who was building 22/7, which is sort of wasn't crypto specific, but was financial technology. And that's when I stepped away from media and really got stuck into product development and building businesses in the space.
Yeah. And then I mean, your first entry was Luno, which was BitX at the time, right?
Yeah,
You
so when
then
I
moved.
joined BitX, that would have been 2013. It was just after the switchlist merger with BitX. I joined the team as its first product lead with Marcus Swanepoel, who was the CEO, Timothy Stranex, who was the original founder, and some other guys, and started building the business that's now Luno. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. I think I recall we had a beer in Long Street, myself, you and Andre, and you had, I think, just joined and BitX and were quite excited about doing that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's a cool business.
then why did you leave?
I just had other opportunities on my plate, and I felt like I'd done everything. I'd contributed everything that I needed to. I think, to me, you get two kinds of, the taxonomy is not perfect, but I find a lot of entrepreneurs are good at starting things, and then other entrepreneurs are good at managing things. I'm definitely a starting person. It's a combination of ADHD and optimism, probably. Haven't been diagnosed, but yeah, I like starting things, and once they're up and running, I'm probably not the guy to keep managing them.
Okay, so how do you relate that into then? And I think 2016, you came to me and said you want to kind of start your own business, and it was initially, I think, focused on cryptocurrency and people that wanted to get into the space but don't really want to do things themselves and want someone knowledgeable. And I think people came to you, and then you came to me saying, what is the regulatory scenario with this, and how does this work? How do I not end up in jail? How did you make that decision? What were you doing at that point, and how did you decide to then start your own business?
That was a business that was formed by request. I just had a lot of friends who, particularly at the time, because around 2016, 2017, that was really the rise of Ethereum. And so I had a lot of friends who wanted exposure to the asset. Most of the exchanges back then were pretty much Bitcoin only. Bitcoin was the only game in town.
Right.
And some of my smarter friends saw the rise of Ethereum and the opportunities there and wanted exposure to it. But,
Right.
especially in the local market, that wasn't an easy thing to do. And I was already, I've been involved in Ethereum since the beginning. I was running a frontier node. And I had, it was something I understood. And so when 10 of your friends ask you to do something for them, you probably have a business idea. And so we started an asset management business that gave them exposure to crypto outside of Bitcoin. And that, was the birth of now a group of companies. But none of that was the plan in the beginning. It was just friends asking me to do something and me going, okay.
And it is a business now. Where is that business at? Give us a bit more detail of the businesses that you've started and are running and that both of us are involved in.
I mean, I view the world through systems. So, Inves Capital, which is our holding company, is really it's a systems business. And myself and our co-founder, Kenneth Ings, we put a lot of our resources into developing our own technology stack that we call Appia. That really does a lot of things that just weren't possible in the old world of financial technology. And then that has spawned a lot of business cases out of these systems that we've produced. So I won't bore you with all of them, but there's the asset management business, which I've alluded to already, which is really a platform for managing, funds or any financial product, really. It doesn't have to be crypto. In an industry where predominantly things are run on Excel, we thought we could do better than Excel, and we did. And then more recently, and my current focus was developing a stablecoin for the South African rand and starting to look at other emerging market economies where we can replicate what we've done in South Africa with ZARP.
Right. Okay. And I mean, and how have you found sort of? Okay, first of all, I think at a sort of a BitX Luno stage, and then you moved to Curve. It was more employment based, I would assume, and then moving into your own business and how that transition is, and now being a business owner, how do you feel about that? And what was that transition like? And from an income perspective for yourself and running a business, I mean, how easy or tough is it to start a business?
Yeah, I think people have a perception that starting businesses is difficult and shutting them down is easy, but the opposite's actually true. It's really easy to start
Mm,
something and really difficult to shut it down. But
mm,
for me, it was it's sort of something I've always been doing. I formed my first company when I was 17 years old and
mm,
started I got in touch with local distributors for PC components and started a business that built out personal computers and sold them for pocket money, basically. That was scratch
mm,
technology. I've never not had a business I've been a director of. It's always been a vehicle I've used for something, whether it's expressing an
something,
idea or making pocket money or managing my personal income. To me, entrepreneurship is just natural. It's just something I've always done. I can't remember a time before.
yeah.
And and
Yeah, I
and
can.
and that sort of was true even through being gainfully employed by companies where I was both a shareholder and an employee.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've got that same thing. It's like I see even an employed job. It's sort of, it's nice to have that certainty of maybe what you would call a salary, but it's always see it as a project or a part of what I do rather than, and there will always be other things that I'm involved in. So being gainfully employed maybe just gives you some security sometimes for a little bit. Because I think business can be tough when it comes to, income, and if the business goes through stages and things such as that. How have you found that in terms of also mixing your personal finance with your business finance, and what's your philosophy there? Like, how do you, pay yourself and
I mean,
manage
it's
that?
it's fairly straight. It's fairly straightforward, Almo, but it comes from a place of just being unemployable, right? Like I don't fit into the corporate paradigm. I'm just not capable of doing that. And I'm
Mm,
sometimes envious of people who are. But it's a
mm,
combination of things. I have a problem with authority. I'm lazy. I have ADHD probably. But also I don't believe in all of these processes and shibboleths that have been installed in the corporate world just for the sake of it. Meetings drive me crazy. 99% of them are pointless. Checking in and out of a place every day just because that's what you've agreed in a contract, but not because you have anything to do, makes no sense to me. So, I actually see corporate culture as like a mind virus, and I just
mm,
can't subscribe to it. So, I, you,
mm.
it it might look like a plan, but it was just born of necessity because I'm not able to operate in a corporate culture.
I think for me, just to relate it to my own personal story, which I think, I mean, it's not the same, but I think similar type of things is at one point I found myself not being able to be employed for various reasons. I couldn't find a job, and I tried. It's not for lack of trying. I do think it was a better option, although very hard, to almost be forced into just entrepreneurship and starting my own businesses, to try and make something happen, having kids and needing to support them, and just not being able to, as I said, and I added to my education, thinking that that would make a difference and from an employment perspective. But it didn't really, for whatever reason, here and there, I would have had jobs. But by that time, I was also, again, like you said, totally unemployable because I had experienced the freedom of sort of having your own business and managing your own time and doing things at your own pace. But I think it's the toughest is always making a business make enough money to pay yourself and pay other people that you need to actually employ to grow. And that's been the tough thing. So it's not an easy road, but it's definitely a much more a freeing experience to have that. And yeah, by this time being in my mid 40s already, I'm definitely not employable. I mean, we work together, but it's not, we don't have a corporate culture. We do what is necessary to get the business to the next level. So it is difficult. Yeah, it's not an easy thing. So one can't it's difficult to pinpoint in something like this. And how do people decide to go from employment to having their own business? Because people always have this grand idea, I think, sometimes of owning your own business, and it's not easy, but it's definitely rewarding in other ways. And hopefully one does hit an idea or a business that does work and actually can provide enough for you.
Yeah. Well, everything comes at a price, right? So, if you're gainfully employed, it comes with a lot of security. You don't have to worry about paychecks at the end of the month. If you're part of a big enough corporate culture, you'll probably have, some bonus at the end of the year. You don't need to worry about what the business needs to do next. Somebody else is probably making that decision for you. But, that comes at the price of having to check in and out every day and having somebody clock watching you and managing your time, and the leave system, which just boggles my mind, So, and then, like you said, entrepreneurship gives you that freedom, but it also gives you the sleepless nights about cash flow and worrying about other people's remuneration and the risks to the business and what you should be doing next, and all of the uncertainty that comes with that. So it swings and roundabouts, Almo, but you pay for everything one way or the other.
One way or the other.
I know which I prefer.
Now, just tell me a little bit. I'm still not sure, but yeah, I mean, I like a bit of security, but like I said, I won't be able to work for anyone. That's the thing, and I think I'm
people
grateful
who know what
for...
they want are boring, Almo. They're tedious. Yeah.
But at this point in time, I'm grateful to be involved in something where it is I'm getting a little bit of both, some security, some hope of upside, and then a lot of flexibility and feeling like I'm contributing to something, and having a small ownership stake in it as well also helps, because it is like, but in this case, you take a lot of the strain. I think you're the founder, you are the one that probably feels more responsible in this case.
Yeah.
So I have it a little bit easier.
I mean, that's what you sign up for, right? You have to choose your pain. But I think it's also, I took a lot of inspiration from the Kelly brothers and IDEO. I don't know how much you know about IDEO as an organization.
No,
West Coast company in the
Tell us.
US. They do they do product development for clients essentially. But it's more than that. If you're interested, there's a really good book called The 10 Faces of Innovation. I can't remember. I think it was David Kelly. I might be getting his name wrong. But one of the things I love about IDEO as an organization is that they expect their employees to have a primary undertaking that's not their job. So ballet dancer or a bar owner or and they almost can't work with people who just have a job at IDEO. They expect them to have something on the side, and even for that thing on the side to be their primary undertaking. And they celebrate that at the company. If you're a singer, they'll organize a concert for the company or they'll make sure that all of their employees are at your next show. And I love that. I think those are the kind of people you want to work with. People who have
definitely
diverse interests and express them and know that it's possible to be more than one thing.
I mean, did you apply that in terms of starting your own business, to apply many of the things that you want to see? Because at the end of the day, we do have a company. We have some people that we employ and are probably going to employ more people. What type of, did you implement a lot of that within the culture of the company you run?
Yeah, I don't know how intentional it was, but I think we've created a culture that attracts people that are intrinsically motivated. And I think the powerful thing about culture at an organization is that it will automatically attract the kind of people you want to work with, and it'll filter out the people who you don't. So if you step into our company expecting to be micromanaged and told what to do tomorrow and what your office hours are, you're going to be very uncomfortable because you're not going to get any of that input. Whereas if you're intrinsically motivated and able to manage your own time and take initiative and realize that this is not a Navy vessel, it's a pirate ship. You don't have a specific role. You're not the guy who puts the cannonballs in the cannon and that's all you do. And if the cannon's broken, you don't have a job. You have to find what needs doing and do it. And so, that's untenable for people who need to be managed. And there's nothing wrong with those people, obviously. It's just that's not how our company operates.
But I do feel people, and I even talk for myself, do look to leaders to guide them in some way, maybe not manage. How do you approach? Yeah.
I think with
intrinsically
motivated people need to buy into the vision. They need to care about what they're doing, right? So that you need your North Star. How you get there, though, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what calendar system to use or how often every day you should check your email or what your office hours are. Like, you figure that out. If you want to go to the beach on Tuesday, that's fine, and work on Saturday night, Kif. Like, who am I to tell you how to run your life? So long as we agree on the North Star and I see progress that we're getting there. Because the other interesting thing about it is it's immediately obvious when in companies that aren't bloated, it's immediately obvious when you're not contributing. And then that becomes an uncomfortable thing as well. And your coworkers are going to call you out about it. And I've spent too much time in overfunded startups that just hire people for the sake of it. And they end up with, 400 people more than they need. Nobody knows what anybody else is doing. And you need all of these complex systems to track progress because it's not obvious to anybody what's going on. And it's just, it's bullshit. And but I respect the people who can play that game. And a lot of good things come out of those environments too. That's not how I want to run my business. And I like working with small teams where everybody knows exactly what's going on. And it's very obvious when somebody isn't contributing, and how they contribute is really on them.
I want to just go back a little bit. You said you started your own company at 17 with computer stuff, and you've been involved in sort of, I remember you always being technologically sort of advanced in that. How did that start? Like just early days, like how did you get interested in technology, computers, software, all of that kind of stuff?
I think like all of us through gaming.
Right.
Yeah. The first time I sat down at a personal computer was when I was 9 years old, and a man in a van delivered it to our house. So I think my father was kind of ahead on the curve, and we were one of the first houses to have a personal computer. But it was really when the nice man in the van brought out a floppy disk with a game on it that had piqued my interest. But then
was that game? I said, was that game Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the
No, this was even before then. These were like ASCII. These were ASCII games in DOS. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It wasn't long after that I think Space Quest was the first one that entirely blew my mind.
Yeah.
But I remember you mentioned our friend Andre. I think Andre and I were about 12 years old, and we both had computers and we both had Space Quest. And I remember taking my computer to his house one day so we could sit and play games together, and using it's ridiculous, but we were 12, using like a parallel port and a cable to connect our computers together, and not understanding why our characters in Space Quest weren't on the same screen. It's kind of like Andre and I kind of had the idea for networking and for multiplayer gaming before it even existed. Really.
It's like, why are we not playing together?
It was almost obvious that the only way this becomes useful is if we connect all these things together. And, we all write our narratives in reverse. But I think that's really that fascination with information science and with open networking. That was the real deal. And that led me into a path with, working with Mark Shuttleworth and Craig Rodney on Go Open Source and the launch of Ubuntu Linux, getting very involved in the Creative Commons initiative and the iCommons organization, which sadly is no more. And I think at the heart of everything I've done is there's been a networking angle, because that's really what crypto is about, right? It's about installing open protocols for value transfer into the internet. So it was really the networking side of it that fascinated me more than anything else. And also why I'm not rich from Bitcoin, because I didn't care about the number go up value of it. It was a cool toy.
Interesting. Yeah. And talking about open source, like I'm not obviously that technologically advanced, and because I do the legal side, and that's and Andre is, he's a straight up developer. You've started businesses that create technology products. Open source, like tell us a little bit about that, and what's the big deal about open source software and open source? Because a lot of cryptocurrency stuff is open source in many ways. What is that philosophy about for someone like me that doesn't quite understand the history? And with Linux,
it comes from a core belief that everything works better when it's open, right? Parachutes, mines, monetary systems. But also, there's a lot of misunderstanding in what software is and how it originates that I think has translated itself into a really misguided regulatory and legal framework for how we manage these things. The idea of software as intellectual property as compared to a body of writing or a work of music is just ridiculous. And we've taken all of the laws that we applied to intellectual property before software existed and tried to shoehorn software into that paradigm, right? The dirty secret of software is that most code is written using Control-C and Control-V, right? We reuse things, and everything is kind of derivative. It's bred from something else. And the idea that you could, take a code base and copyright it is just a ridiculous idea. And it's led to some I mean, the situation we have with software copyright at the moment is ridiculous. And so to me, open source is the only honest way to develop software. That doesn't mean you can't make money from it. It doesn't mean you can't protect secrets. And so it's a fairly complex topic that I could literally bore you with for another 18 hours to fully get to my view on it. But there's also just, from an information science perspective, there's that notion that information wants to be free. That doesn't mean you don't pay for it. It doesn't mean free as in pay for it. It means free as in the way a river flows. And the moment you have more than 5 nodes in a network, say, sufficient distribution, or in the crypto world, we refer to Nakamoto coefficient, form of censorship on a network is going to be interpreted as damage, and the network will route around it. So the more you try and take an open network and create nodes of control and censorship, the more irrelevant you make yourself in that network. It's just nonsensical, right? All networks tend towards decentralization over time. And so to me, open networking as a sort of a adjacent area to open source is just an observation of reality. It's just, this is the way information works. And we've got some pretty stupid systems built by people that were just trying to enrich themselves, that try and force information to work differently. It's like trying to reverse gravity because gravity doesn't suit you. It's like, okay, cool. Well, you might get that right for a few minutes, but it's not going to end well for you.
I see what you're saying. So the natural way,
I don't know if that makes sense.
Is actually,
that was pretty divergent.
It does a bit. I mean, the way I understand is what you're saying is that the natural course of software and technology is free flow. And if you try and stop that, then you're just going to, stop the natural flow of it.
Yeah. But we're also human beings. It's just the way we do things. It's the way we progress. Nothing is entirely unique. It's all derivative. It's all based on something somebody else has done, Like Elon Musk doesn't build space rockets. He doesn't have a kiff enough spanner or the understanding of how to do that. It takes thousands of people to build rockets that land themselves, Steve Jobs didn't make the iPhone. He didn't even have the idea for it. He was just the CEO of a company where hundreds of people collaborated to do something incredible that was based on many years of smartphone development before that, with Windows CE and BlackBerry. And so it's just, human beings are, the way we achieve anything is through collaborating, through working together, through sharing ideas and letting go of things and allowing somebody else to pick up where we left off. And open source is just the best expression of that. It's just how software was developed originally. The notion of copyright and proprietary software did not exist in the beginning of computing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have personal computers. Steve Wozniak would not have been able to create the world's first personal computer if he was confined to proprietary software development.
Yeah. Letting go of the attachment of that. There's this ownership of something that isn't necessarily, you didn't even create all on your own. You used other people's ideas and collaboration to create it. Yeah. Definitely.
Yes.
So Simon, you've written 2 books, In Math We Trust, and then co-authored Beyond Bitcoin with Stephen Sidley. Great books. Read them both.
Thank you, Amo.
And definitely recommend In Math We Trust as for people that don't understand the cryptocurrency world and what it means and how it started, as a beginner book, which is not focused necessarily on one thing, but obviously we know Bitcoin was one of the first cryptocurrencies and the biggest still. But other than that, so tell us just briefly about the 2 books and what people can find in them. And then other than that, as a business owner, entrepreneur, as someone who's well read, like what are some of like your books that you have read that really stand out for you, that people might get value from reading apart from your own ones?
Okay. So there were 2 questions there. So the first one, In Math We Trust was published in 2018. My publisher, Tracy McDonald, actually approached me to write the book. I wasn't thinking of writing a book at the time, but it was, it was fantastic. It forces you to kind of assess your own thinking and how sure you are of the opinions you're about to put down. Because the weird thing with a book is once it's published, you can't log in and edit it, unlike a blog post, which I was used to.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Like I'll catch typos in the book, and I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about that now. And then you change your mind as well. It's been many years, so I mean, to be honest, I can't remember everything I wrote in it, but
Yeah.
but every now and then somebody will remind me of something, and I'm like, do I still think that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Beyond Bitcoin was beautiful because there was a collaboration. I really enjoyed co-authoring and having both experiences, writing my own work and then working with somebody else who really is much better at me than me at the business of putting out books. So the second book did a lot better. It's been translated. I think it's in 6 languages now.
Wow.
And it's done pretty well globally. So that was a completely different experience. But to your second question, Almor, I've read maybe thousands of business books, and they're all entirely useless. Most of them could have been a tweet or a blog post, and they were just written so that somebody could launch a speaking career, right? They're an abject waste of time. You get like halfway through them and you're like, thank you. That's, 4 hours of my life I'll never get back in something that you could have expressed in a tweet. But the few I would recommend that are solid gold, Derek Sivers' book, Anything You Want. It's a really short read. You can read it in an afternoon. I think Derek Sivers is probably the most eccentric entrepreneur ever born. Love him.
I haven't read that, actually. I definitely want to look into that.
Yeah. He's actually got a new book out at the moment I haven't read, but Anything You Want is great. Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog, about the founding of Nike.
Yeah,
absolutely
that's good.
Remarkable. Just very honest, raw take on entrepreneurship. You kind of realize that it doesn't matter what scale a business reaches, you still have the same headaches. You're still worrying about cash flow. So I highly recommend anybody who thinks they're struggling in their business, pick up a copy of Shoe Dog and see what Phil Knight went through to launch Nike. It's just unbelievable. So I really loved that one. But to be honest, I'm looking at my bookshelf to try and find something else. Most of the books I read are science books. I love Colin Ravelli's writing and yeah, I find that way more interesting. I love Oliver Sacks.
But then tell us about any book. And then, it doesn't matter if it's entrepreneurship.
You learn the same things from anyone, right? Whether it's Oliver Sacks, and talking about medicine and his science, or reading about Richard Feynman's life and really the distillation of quantum physics, and they all tell you something about humanity and how we achieve things and how we do that better together.
Definitely. I wanted to ask you, but you brushed over the fact that you started at Tuks and that you were on air and you were on air Simon Frost. And
Yes.
I love that, Simon. How did you choose that name, Simon Frost?
I didn't actually. The DJ manager didn't want us to use our real names. I can't even remember why. He just said, no, you're not allowed to use it. I mean, my real name's fucking silly, so maybe, but that wasn't the reason he forced us all to use different names. And so we had a meeting with all the new DJs and we had to make up names for each other if we didn't have one. And there was, I don't know if you remember Matt. I can't remember his surname. I made up his name for him. So his DJ name was Matt Glass, which I think was a pretty good job. And then he chose my name for me, which was Simon Frost. I don't know where he got that idea from, but that's who I became for a very short period of time.
Yeah. And you also, Gareth Cliff was at Tuks at that point, eh?
That's right. Yeah, he was a few years ahead of us at varsity. But that era at Tuks FM was remarkable. It was Gareth Cliff, it was Anela Medoda, it was Grant Nash, it was Liesel van der Vestes, and it was Almor Lebowski. A lot of very famous and successful people came out of that period, Almor. Doesn't matter. You were there.
Yeah, I was there. Towards the end, because I only joined when I was 4th year and I was in the music department. So I had to basically do playlists. But I think, you were definitely still there. And I remember my favorite was doing your plays because I threw in all the hip hop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
you had to.
Yeah, you knew what I needed. No, you knew what my fans needed, Almor, and you gave it. Yeah, and you made sure I delivered.
That was good. Do you remember Eric Clavier? What was his name on air?
So I can't remember, but I remember
he was
him.
friends with Gareth Cliff. Yeah, it was like sort of like a German thing. It was like
can't remember.
Loose. Man, I was hoping that you did, but it doesn't matter.
No,
but tell me about Tuks.
To Eric for many years. I think he lives in Canada now, and he's a lawyer. But
he does. He actually. I sort of kind of got to know him a little bit better even after that, because he was a year ahead of me in law. So through my mate Kai, who's friends with him. and Gareth Cliff. And he was a very successful advocate in Pretoria and then moved to Canada and totally had to requalify. I remember he put a picture up of all the books. It was like literally a stack like this. Seriously hard requalifying in Canada. But yeah, he was adamant to do that. Now I think quite successfully so in a lawyer in Canada. But now tell me a little bit more about Tuks, because Tuks was a great time. It was like you basically or didn't really finish your Tuks courses, and because you just got involved in radio, and tell us how that.
Well, I only went to university so I could work at the radio station.
Okay.
So there was
right.
nothing I wanted to study. I did information science for a couple of years, and I did Psych 1 and 2. But you had to study to work at the radio station, and I wanted to work at the radio station. So I was like, okay, well, I'll have to study something, otherwise they won't let me work there.
Yeah.
And that was.
How did you decide that you wanted to get into radio, though?
I don't know. It was just something that I was always wanted to do. I remember when we were kids, my brother and I got hold of a tape recorder, and we just used to record ourselves having conversations and pretending to be on radio. The first time I called into a talk radio station, I was 12 years old. I was sick at home. I called into John Robbie's show on 702.
Okay.
I just always loved the medium. You know what? It had something to do with aliens. That he had somebody on who had predicted that aliens were gonna, arrive and save the world in like April of 1995 or something. And I didn't agree with him. At the age of 12, you can imagine that I had a very well-informed opinion. I've always loved the medium. It's the theater of the mind. It's the most personal medium that we've ever created. You can't read a newspaper or watch television while you're showering or driving or doing all of the other things that human beings do, but you can listen to the radio and somebody else can be there with you. And so I just always loved that idea. And then Tuks FM was an enigma. I mean, during the time we were there, and we didn't know this then, it was the biggest campus radio station in the world. We only found that out afterwards. There was like this idiosyncrasy that because radio spectrum obviously is highly regulated because it's a finite resource. And because the University of Pretoria had these satellite campuses all over the metropolitan area, they were given one of the first FM licenses for a campus radio station that extended to the size of a city. We also found out that if you buy the old man at the signal tower in Pretoria on the mountain some whiskey, he might just leave you alone in the room with your transponder for a few minutes and you can turn up the megawatts on your... Highly illegal. Didn't do this myself, Elmo. But we extended the footprint of Tuks FM to almost all of Johannesburg for about 2 years by fiddling with some switches in the Centec tower. And so at one stage, we had a bigger footprint than a lot of the commercial stations in South Africa. Over Pretoria and Johannesburg, I remember our AMPS ratings coming out one year, and we had a bigger listenership than 5FM, which was the biggest commercial radio station, like national radio station at the time. Yeah, it really was an enigma. And I remember one of our station managers went on a fact-finding trip to learn how we could get even bigger and run this more successfully. He went to the States, to UCLA. I remember speaking to campus radio stations in Brazil and Australia. And when they told us their listenership numbers, we're like, dude, that's like a tenth of what we've got. And so we learned after the fact that this was the biggest campus radio station in the world, which is interesting. It was fun. It really was fun. And I actually remember, you mentioned Gareth earlier. Gareth moved on into commercial radio long before the rest of us. And we were still hacking away at Tuks FM, and he came and visited us one day. And he said to me, you need to enjoy this, dude, because it's the last time you're going to have fun in radio. And I was like, whatever, It must be really fun having the morning show on 5FM. But no, you have fun at a student radio station that you do not have in commercial radio. And you get away with a lot more too.
Yeah. How did you find the radio? Because you were then on 702 as well. But then you moved more to like a segment-based thing on 5FM, or if I recall. How did you find it, the commercial radio side? Yeah,
it was the longest running non-music feature on 5FM. It was 10 years before I nuked it. I had fun. It was never in my primary occupation. It's incredibly difficult to make any money in radio. So it was always like something I was doing on the side while I was building businesses and doing other stuff. I guess the most challenging thing was learning the ropes on talk radio with 702 and Cape Talk. So it was simulcast to my show was simulcast to Gauteng and Cape Town. But you have to go through the graveyard shifts on talk radio, and that means no engineer, no producer, just you in the studio with a call screener for 4 hours between like 12 and 4 in the morning. And Elmore, let me tell you, the kind of people who call into talk radio at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday are not entirely sane, right?
Okay. Yeah.
To share their very well informed insights into politics and global affairs.
Okay.
So it was incredibly testing.
Right. Yeah. How long did you do that for?
702 in Cape Talk, I think, was 2 or 3 years before I had a falling out with the program management staff. We've already gone down the rabbit hole with my problem on authorities. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was fun. It was challenging. Made me question many things.
And in terms of radio versus podcasting, because you also then got into podcasting, right? How do you see
podcasting
that? Like,
was also
the difference.
When we started, I don't know if you remember Seedcast and the ZA Tech Show, which became the biggest podcast in Africa. But back then, the word podcast kind of didn't even exist. We were just recording stuff and putting it out on our own terms and not having to, go to a studio every day at a set time and check in, which really suited me. Those grew into businesses, and we probably nuked them way too soon. I think, podcasting just has exploded over the last 5 years. But we killed the ZA Tech Show probably in 2000. If we had kept at it, it would probably still be, it took us to amazing places, and introduced us to incredible people like Leo Laporte, and made my way onto This Week in Tech, which at one stage was the biggest podcast in the world. People like Tom Merritt recording at CES in Las Vegas, and it was a wild time. Had a lot of fun. But yeah,
do you think that
I guess there's a lesson in there. When you get into an industry really early, the worst thing you can do for yourself is get out again too early. Like, just stick with it. The world will catch up eventually.
Yeah, I think keeping that consistency and just keeping it going does have value. Kind of forgot my question now. That was going to segue into that. Oh,
it's okay.
How did you, because you did a lot of technology podcasting and a lot of got exposed to, do you think that was part of you being able to transition into technology from a more business perspective and get into product development? Did you meet and learn a lot of things through that, or was it just your own knowledge?
No, I had to learn it on the trot. When I got into product development, I didn't even know what that meant. To be honest, the first product I managed, I had no idea what a product manager did. I literally had no idea. I knew a little bit about software development from poking around myself and, networking and blah, blah, blah. But I had absolutely no idea how engineering teams operated, how to interface with designers and, translate the alien language into something that engineers can work with. I had to learn it all on the trot, honestly. It took somebody just betting on me and going, you'll figure it out. He has a job. And I made it happen. Yeah. And I'm incredibly proud of that work that we did, which was 22/7, obviously, and we eventually sold it to Old Mutual. So I figured it out eventually, but I had no idea what I was doing when I started.
But it is also a nice opportunity for someone to give you, because, often people are, you do believe that you can do something. You might not have the qualifications or experience, but you believe that's something that you could be good at but no one gives you an opportunity. So it is quite rare to have someone do that, right? I don't know.
Yes.
That would be my
it's
view.
incredibly rare. No, it's incredibly rare. Like, you have to be a crazy person, pretty much, to take somebody who's like a radio DJ who writes about technology and podcasts, and then expect that they'd be able to step into basically a founding role at your company and guide the product development. Of course, it's incredibly rare.
Yeah. Amazing. And Simon, what is, if you weren't doing, okay, first, it's actually two questions. Okay. What about the current, what do you look, we know you're involved with Inves Capital, sub-companies, Venox and ZARP Stablecoin. What are you excited about in that business going forward, and what do you see there? And if you weren't doing that, what would you be doing?
Well, what excites me is just making the world a fairer place. I think that's what really got me interested in crypto in the first place. And we've already gone down the whole on open networking and open source software. It's all about making the world a fairer place that works better for everybody. And so if you look at the project that I'm most focused on right now, which is our stablecoin ZARP, to me, the big angle there is financial inclusion. The system of banking and financial regulation and the way that we structured the world suits a very small amount of people and disrupts the lives pretty severely of everyone else. And it's not fair and it's stupid and it doesn't work. And now we've got technology that makes that situation better or can make that situation better. Technology that doesn't need permission, doesn't have gatekeepers, doesn't favor 1% of humanity at the cost of everyone else. You can transact and participate in an economy that doesn't care how much money you have or how much money you're trying to send home to your family, and doesn't try to rob you of as much of it as possible on its way across the border. It doesn't respect our borders, which are just made up nonsense anyway. And so that's what excites me. It's a little bit like, when you see a reality that's just obvious to you and it's not obvious to the rest of the world, but it's still compromising them. You're either crazy, which is possible, or, you're thinking in the way that things should be. Like maybe the Earth isn't the center of the universe. And maybe the fact that everybody else believes that it doesn't make it true. And maybe that's a stupid reality that needs to change. And so the world of money and the way it worked until yesterday is just stupid. It is. It doesn't. Like, how do we think that this is the way it should be? That you've got megalomaniacs like Elon Musk, that is the richest man in history, while simultaneously being a complete plonker. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And the systems that prop that up it's just, anyway, this is another topic I could carry on for hours, but that's what gets me up in the morning, is just making the system better, making it fairer, making it more equitable, getting more people online and participating, and actually thinking about what kind of situation we want as humanity. If we're going to have 10 billion people one day, is it okay that, less than 1% of them have all the resources and determine how the world operates for everyone else? No, that's stupid. Let's change it. And the way you fix that is you fix the money first.
Fix the money, yeah. And
fix the money,
just
fix the
on
world.
that, sorry, on the point of being the center of the universe, and that may not be the case, and you calling into 702 talking about aliens. Do you believe in aliens?
I mean, yes. I believe that there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. None of it has ever visited us because it has a problem called physics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was just
but I like that you decided that should be the next question. I think you're an alien, Elmo. And I believe in you. So, yeah.
Okay, so you believe in alien. Oh, thanks. Believe in me. Other than sort of your business, I mean, what do you do for when you're not thinking about a business? Because I know it's difficult when you have a business and you're thinking about changing the world with it, as you said, and changing the system as much as possible. It's difficult to switch off. What do you do for that? What do you do for that outside of running your businesses and thinking about those constantly?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been lucky that I don't find it that difficult to switch off.
Okay.
It's always in the back of your mind, but I mean, you know me, I enjoy dance music. I like festivals. I love hanging out with people, having discussions like this, video games, trail running, surfing really badly. But, that's what life's about. Business is just part of it. I've never understood this kind of idea of a work-life balance. It's like that compartmentalization just doesn't work for me. I don't know if have you watched the Apple TV show Severance? With the people who,
I think,
go to work and they literally can't remember their outside life. They're like two separate people. They have a thing installed in their brain, and when they work, they can't remember their normal lives. And it's genius. It's a creation of Ben Stiller's, but it's an interesting observation because it's a good metaphor for this idea that I've always found crazy, that you have your work life and then you have the rest of your life. It's just like, it's fucking stupid. It's just all the same thing. It's all life. Are you going to spend 8 hours every day doing something you hate? like that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah, I think we do need to recognize that some people, as I said, and we don't fit into corporate culture. We said that already, and we're not really employable, so to speak. But there are a lot of people that have gotten into that. It's difficult to get out of sort of your work situation. And often corporates and the way that they're set up, it would be bad if you gave some insight into what your life outside work is like, because there would be an element of judgment, or even subtly, using HR processes to potentially get rid of you because you do certain things. And I've realized, talking to a lot of people, that that's a real concern. And you mentioned sort of festivals, and how a lot of people go to these festivals to, and they don't necessarily want their work people to know about it, because it's a totally different lifestyle that they have. And I think it's a reality. I think some people are okay with it, but I think mostly they're not. And it's a very interesting thing to consider. I don't really have a question about it, but I mean, it's just an observation that it's a very difficult thing. And it's amazing when you can have a situation where you don't need to I don't want to use the word hide, but have this very separate work and social life. Some people maybe like it. They like the secrecy of it, that people at their work don't necessarily know anything about what they do after. But me, we talked about it, open source transparency is I think definitely tends to be more something that makes you feel happier in life, that makes you feel more content, because you're not having to manage two different.
Yeah. I mean, that's a much deeper discussion about candor and honesty and how you present yourself to the world. But I also think that I think, as with our relationships and everything else in life, Hollywood has kind of distorted or perverted reality for a lot of people. And we have these ideas that you have to be doing something special and unusual to be happy, and that other work doesn't matter. Whereas it's interesting, some of the most unhappy people I know are, managers and executives in a big corporate company. And some of the happiest people I know are basically blue collar workers, or people like plumbers, doing honest work that honestly they enjoy and they find interesting, and it's very meaningful. And the beautiful thing about that kind of work is it doesn't come home with you, you fix the piping, you fix the toilet, or you don't, or you lay as many bricks as you can in a day, and then you go home and it's over, and you don't think about work, right? You're going to go and lay more bricks tomorrow, but that doesn't come home with you. You don't lie awake at night worrying about how many bricks you're going to lay tomorrow. And so I think that's the beautiful thing about socialism, is it tries to create an even playing field where it's like, there's a lot of jobs that need doing. Somebody needs to make sure that the plumbing works. Somebody needs to be laying the bricks. Somebody needs to be taking out the trash, And it's this idea that some people are worth more than others because they went to some important school and made the right friends, and now they get to tell other people how to make spreadsheets. Like, those are the least interesting people in society, and actually they're contributing the least as well. So again, we can carry on all day about how strange the world of work has evolved, but there's that beautiful TV show documentary series. What was it called? Dirty Work, I think. Anyway, the host of that, this is his passion. He's like, we should be encouraging people to do these other jobs, and you can make a lot of money doing them too. One of the richest people in America has a company that cleans roadkill off of highways, right?
Wow.
Dude loves his job. He's rich.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to fit into these patterns that have been presented to us by Hollywood and everybody else to be happy and successful.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, Almo, but
no, it's an interesting discussion. I think happiness, what makes you happy most, like in everyday life?
Ay caramba, Almo.
What do you... Having fun with friends.
The things that make everybody happy. Yeah, exactly. Having fun with other people. Good food.
Good food, yeah.
I've told you this before. I don't think happiness is a noble thing to pursue. I think contentment is, or
makes sense, yeah.
Curiosity is probably a better path. Yeah, I can't always be happy. I don't really have control over that. It's a weird concoction of brain chemicals and circumstances, but I can always be curious about what's happening around me, and that helps more.
Good point. No, I also don't quite believe in this concept of happiness. I think it's okay not to be happy all the time, but I've always said peace is something more important, but also I think what you've said about curiosity is very interesting, because I think being curious and about finding out about more things and adding things to your life through curiosity definitely is more interesting. I'd rather have a more interesting life than a happy life, I guess. So curiosity creates that. So that's a very good one.
Don't want it to be too interesting. The curse, may you live in interesting times.
Yes, we were talking about it just the other day. What is that? Explain that quickly again to everyone.
Well, it's incorrectly referred to as the Chinese curse. It's not actually a Chinese curse. It has its roots in ancient Egypt. But it was basically a wish that a pharaoh bestowed upon his enemy. May you live in interesting times.
Yeah. I hear you. I like the curiosity part and not to seek this sometimes unattainable goal of being happy all the time.
Yes.
I think we can leave it at that nugget of wisdom.
Good. Yeah, I need to boogie anyway. Got to go speak to a guy about a thing.
A thing that you're going to do. Nice, man. So it's so awesome speaking to you on this. I know it can sometimes be because we talk all the time and we spend quite a bit of time together. But I wanted everyone to get a bit of insight into Simon, the curious enigma of Simon Frost. What do people know you as? What's your favorite nickname? I need to put a nickname on the title. Can I just make it Frost? Are you still happy with Frost? Oh man. Sorry. Cool. Lekker, man. Thanks for coming on and sharing some of what you've got to share. Have a good one. Lekker. Cheers.